Malcolm here. Unfortunately, the video recording of the sermon cut out a little bit early. So after you've watched this, you can watch the sermon, and then I've added a bit on at the end to cover the points that were missed by the recording today. I hope you enjoy what you are about to watch and hear.
Okay, I have for you today, I have something that you can't buy, but I have something you all need. I have the antidote to chaos. The antidote to chaos is what we're going to be talking about today, all from Psalm 62. Oh, how we need an antidote to chaos. Isn't there so much chaos in this world? Or actually, let's just be honest, isn't there so much chaos in our own lives? And around us in our household, in our own lives, and all the things that are going on around us. There's chaos on this lectern as I try and sort out all these pieces of paper and everything that I have up here. There's chaos in my life. There's chaos in just about the life of everybody I've ever met, and I think there always will be. What happens when you feel like the chaos is erupting, the chaos of a child that needs comforting, or a nappy changing? There's always something disrupting our lives, isn't there? We've got our plan, we're going a direction, and then something cuts in and gets in the way. And how do we cope with that? When chaos comes into our lives, we feel fragile. You know, you feel strong, you feel okay, you feel competent, but then something happens and you realize you feel really fragile all of a sudden. Sometimes you feel significant because somebody remembers your birthday, and then sometimes you feel insignificant because someone you expected to remember your birthday didn't. And we deal with significance and insignificance. We deal with direction and lack of direction. We deal with strength and fragility. We deal with safety and danger. We feel safe some of the time, and then something happens, we feel unsafe in our lives. We wonder whether anybody really cares about anything we ever do, really. Would they notice if I wasn't here anymore? And I wonder about this sometimes I do a lot of podcasting and I put videos up online, and sometimes I wonder whether anybody actually listens to them or watches them, and I don't know. And you see, there are two reasons for checking your stats. If you analyze your stats for your podcast downloads, there are two reasons for doing it. The first and good reason is that you want to know whether your plans are working, whether you need to adjust your social media strategy and what you might need to do about that. That's the good reason. The bad reason is anybody listening to me? Please, somebody listen to me. Please. There's one person. Excellent. There's two. Fantastic. And we get that kind of insecurity, and I feel that. I had a troll recently. I had someone trolling me on social media, and part of me was like, I hated it because all this person did was put the thumbs down on every YouTube video I ever did. And they obviously didn't listen to any of them because they put the thumbs down on so many of them in one day. They couldn't possibly have watched all of them in one day. They just had decided before even watching any of them that they weren't any good. This chap didn't like me, so he put the thumbs down on all these videos. There was part of me that really got discouraged about that, but there was part of me that rejoiced. At least somebody cares and knows that I'm out there. I've got a troll. How many people have got a troll? I mean, it wasn't really good, but we're trying to control the chaos. We're trying to get rid of the chaos, and I wonder whether it's even possible. How do you deal with the chaos in your life? The chaos that comes in when you don't invite it in, but it comes. Anyway, what do you do when you feel fragile? What do you do when you feel insignificant? What do you do when you feel unsafe? When as a single you wonder what's going to become of your life if you haven't yet figured out your direction in life and you're wondering where it's all going. When you're married and you wonder if you'll make it. I mean, my parents just had their 60th wedding anniversary last month, and that's wonderful, and I hope that Penny and I can get to 60. I hope we'll get there, but I also hope we'll get there and be happy. I mean, just putting the years in doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? So when I'm saying we wonder, those of us who are married, whether we'll make it, not just whether we'll stay together, but whether we'll actually be happy together. Will our 60th wedding anniversary be something to celebrate, or would we rather keep people away from the reality of our marriage? We wonder about such things, don't we? Well, I do anyway. We wonder as parents, the chaos that it is to be a parent. We wonder how our children will turn out, and we hope they'll turn out to be fine, upstanding members of society that will contribute to the good of humankind. And that could be the case, but frankly, you're not in control of that. You have an influence, but you can't control it. And we worry about such things. Some of us who've been Christians a while We wonder whether, again, as older Christians, are we going to make it? Not just make it to the end of life believing in Jesus, but are we going to get, hopefully, more and more devoted and excited about our Christian life? Or are we going to look back on the early days? When I was a young Christian, life was more exciting. My Christian faith was more vibrant. I had more faith then. And we wonder whether we can have a vibrant, exciting faith the older we get as Christians. And we get that fear of the future. And of course we worry about political things like what will happen post-Brexit. We wonder about job security. I mean, my grandfather had one job his entire life. He worked for the customs. My father has had effectively 3 or 4 jobs. In my lifetime I've had, I suppose, depending on how you count it, maybe 5. People of the next generation, I believe, are expected that the average job tenure is about 2.5 years. Keep moving and moving and moving. And I spoke to somebody about that recently, and they said, well, actually, in my experience, it's more often than that. It's more like 1.5 years. And there's something that's creative and exciting about that, but there's also something rather daunting. And we want to deal with this feeling of overwhelming chaos in our lives and around us. Perhaps your life feels rather like that painter. You can't figure out what the point of it is. You don't even know where to look. And it's just a confusing mass of stuff. And there are times in our lives when that is how life feels to us. Now, if you're a person of faith and you believe in Jesus and you believe that God has a plan for your life, you believe that there are some keys to this. And what are the keys to dealing with the reality of the chaos? And don't try and tell me you don't have chaos in your life. Because if you don't right now, you will by the time you leave the building. Because it's just one of those things about life. Your car won't start in the car park. Something's going to happen. How do we deal with it? We all deal with it. We all deal with chaos, but we just don't all deal with it healthily. So today we're going to talk about the keys that we see in David in Psalm 62 as to how to deal with chaos. What is the antidote to chaos? Let's turn to Psalm 62 and read this together, and then we'll discuss what we find here. I'm going to read the new NRSV version because I like the way a couple of bits are translated. It reads thus: For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken. How long will you assail a person? Will you batter your victim, all of you? Or as you would a leaning wall, a tottering fence? Their only plan is to bring down a person of prominence. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. For God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken. On God rests my deliverance and my honor, my mighty rock. My refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Puts no confidence in extortion, and sets no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. Once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God, and steadfast love belongs to you, O Lord. For you repay to all according to their work. Now let's think about the context here for David. What's going on in David's life at this time? Most people think that he wrote this when he was still being chased by Saul. So King Saul, you remember the story? So David's anointed to be the next king. He knows he's really the rightful, legitimate next king of Israel. But King Saul, the one who's got the throne at the moment, isn't all that happy about this idea because he doesn't want a rival to the throne. In fact, Saul wants to control the chaos that Yahweh, the God of Israel, is bringing upon him. So he tries to control it. How does he try to control his chaos? By making David's life chaos. By chasing him out of town. And you've got David's hiding, he's running through the deserts, he's being chased through the deserts, he's running through the mountains, being chased through the mountains, he's hiding in caves, and you've got the whole of Saul's army after him. I mean, it's one thing if you've got one other human being stalking you. I've never been stalked. I don't know what it would be like. I wouldn't like it. But imagine someone is stalking you. They're there outside your car in the morning when you go to work. They're there at your office when you get there. They're there when you come home. I mean, if one person's chasing you, that's bad enough. But if it's the head of state with the whole army, I mean, that's pretty chaotic for you, right? Your life would be complete chaos. If the king, if the president, if the prime minister and the army of a nation were chasing you down. This is what's going on for David. And how does he deal with it? How does he deal with the chaos in his life? Well, he writes this, he prays this, he sings this psalm, and he says, "For God alone my soul waits in silence." Waits in silence. I would say this, what's the antidote to chaos? And so the antidote to chaos is silence. In other words, it's not control. The antidote to chaos is not control. Why? Because you and I know that as soon as you've got something under control, it's a bit like a wet bar of soap, and you get it and it's gone again. Control is momentary, and it's an illusion really. Sometimes we think we can get our lives under control, or we can deal with the chaos by becoming competent. That's it. My marriage is in a mess, but if I read 3 books and go to 2 seminars and speak to the oldest people I know who have been married the longest and seem happy, then everything will get fixed. Because then I'll be competent enough. And certainly we should read books and talk to people and go to seminars, and all of that is good, but you'll never get to the point where you know everything. Or you'll be prepared for every challenge in your marriage or in your life. Competency will not control the chaos. And you can't control things anyway. What David found is instead of trying to control Saul or control God or control things around him, he said, okay, well, I just need to be silent. And that goes against most of our instincts. When chaos is whirling around us, and we're in the middle of it, the last thing that I feel like doing is sitting down, calmly, shutting my eyes, and being silent. I have felt like that occasionally when I think the solution might be just to go to sleep. And wake up the next morning and hope it's all gone away. But that's not the kind of silence I'm talking about. A deliberate, conscious, intentional sitting, stilling of myself to be silent with God, in God, with Him, deliberately in that way. It's a different way of handling these things, but we, if we're going to learn some things from David, need that. He was chased to the edge of his life, but his instinct was to be silent. David believes in some great promises of God, if you read through the psalm, right? He believes that God is his salvation, his fortress, his refuge. He'll be safe with God. He believes safety is with God. He believes that rest comes from God, the refreshment that he needs. And he believes that there is hope with God, because God is a God of power and a God of love, and therefore there is hope. When you're in the middle of chaos, there is no hope. When you're in the middle of chaos, there is no rest. When you're in the middle of chaos, you don't feel safe. But with God, in silence, there is safety. In silence, there is rest. In silence, there is hope. Because we're connecting. We're connecting with the only one who can give us that and help us in the times of chaos. So, what about Jesus? Let's talk about Jesus for a minute. Let's talk about New Covenant people as we are now, knowing what we know now about Jesus. What did Jesus say in Matthew 11? Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, you who are troubled by the chaos of your lives, and I will give you rest. I will give you rest. Not you will get your own rest. I will give you rest. I've got the rest. You don't have it. I will give it to you. You need to come to me to get it because I'm the only one that has it. So come to me and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Go in my direction, he's basically saying. Follow me, be with me, learn from me, for I am gentle, humble in heart. I want to give you what you need. I'm not in this for myself. I'm not asking you to come to me because I've got something for myself. I'm here. I'm humble, wishy ears, and I'm gentle, and you will find that rest. I will give you the rest that you need. Not only that verse, but many others. We'll just touch on a couple more. In John 14, peace, he said to his disciples, I leave with you. My peace I give you. It's yours if you want it. I don't give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. What a wonderful promise. Or John chapter 16, verse 33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Not around you and just in church or in your life, but in me you will have peace. In this world you will have trouble. In other words, yes, in this world you will have chaos. In this world it largely is chaos. But in me you have peace. Take heart, I have overcome the world. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But he's basically saying, I have overcome the chaos. So therefore you can trust me. You can't overcome it. No one else ever has. I have, and I will help you with the chaos that you are going through in your life. Let's take as one simple example what happened in Luke chapter 8. We haven't got time to study it now, but you know the story where Jesus says to the disciples, get in the boat, we've got to go to the other side. And so they get in the boat, and what happens when they're on the lake? A furious squall comes down. Which doesn't sound bad, but actually it's a terrifying storm that they have on Galilee, and you can easily sink and drown. And so this is going on, and what is Jesus doing in the midst of this storm, in the midst of this chaos? What is he doing? He's sleeping. He's sleeping, and the disciples are like, we're going to drown. Come on, Jesus, wake up. Don't you care? And then he gets up and he rebukes the wind and he rebukes the raging waters. He brings the chaos under control. He stills the storm. And then he says, your faith. And they're amazed. They ask one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. Now, of course, in Hebrew thought, the waters and the sea were a symbol of chaos. The Israelites were not a seafaring nation. They hated the sea. They didn't like it. Lake Galilee is kind of a sea, but that's as much as they could cope with. So it symbolizes chaos. Is exactly what's happening here. So Jesus is saying the world is in chaos ever since Eden, basically, Adam and Eve and all that has been chaos reigning. I am Lord of the chaos. I still the chaos. Watch me in action. The wind and the waves and the waters. Okay, it's calm, it's peaceful, it's stilled. And in Psalm 62, where it says about resting in God and in silence, it can mean also to rest in stillness with God. See, the stillness can be inside even when it's not outside. The stillness is there from Jesus when we need it. He has the power to give you the peace you need, that you are fearful you will never find, and that the world cannot give you. Only Jesus has this amazing power. He stills the stormy waters of our hearts. But we have to get into him to get it. Into him. Not just into a church. We need one another, yes, but we need to be in him to get his peace. Not just in a family group, not just in a dynamic friendship with somebody, not just reading the Bible, not just even praying necessarily, but really saying, I want to be in you, Christ. Like Paul talked about wanting to know the sufferings of Christ as well as everything else, because he wanted to be in Christ. He wanted Christ to be fully alive in him. You know, if the world needs anything from Christians today, it needs Christians that are full of Jesus Christ. More than full of knowledge, more than full of gifts and resources. Full of Jesus himself, because only that gives us the peace that the world will notice. In the midst of the storms and the chaos of the world will notice those who have the peace of Christ. Because we'll be different. Not because we're trying to be, but because the reality of what's happening in our lives is that we have the peace that passes understanding. That's what they found. Jesus gives us peace. He gives us rest and he gives us safety. He is the rock on which we build our lives, right? We build on the rock. We don't build on sand. We build on his example. We build on his teachings. We build on the principles that he lays down. We have a Bible that shows us the heart and character of God through Jesus so that we can follow him in all of our imperfections and weaknesses, but we build our lives. This is why we come to church, people. I mean, maybe there's more than one reason we come to church, more than one reason we do what we do as Christians, but part of it is we come with the attitude of what can I learn that can make me stronger? What will happen today? What can I hear in what Harry shares in the communion, or perhaps there's a lyric in a song, or perhaps there's something in a sermon that will help me be stronger because I'm building on the rock. So I'll be safer on that rock. We don't come to church just to be entertained or feed our imagination, but to be made stronger by building on the rock. Jesus gives us that opportunity. And building on the rock makes all the difference in our lives, for our family, for our neighborhoods. Jesus, here's the thing, you know this, but Jesus' teachings actually work. I mean, they really do. When we put them into practice, they really do work. They heal relationships, they heal us of great scars and weaknesses and depths of despair and all kinds of things. They heal it. When you think about what David is thinking when he says, the Lord is my salvation, I don't think he's thinking particularly about sin. In his situation, he's thinking more about his own physical danger from King Saul. He's worried about stuff around him. The teachings of Jesus change us fundamentally and make us better human beings, which makes the world a better place. And there's a spiritual component, of course, with that, but we are utterly transformed by building on the rock. These teachings have been making the world better since the year naught. They've been making you better since the day you were baptized, if you build on the rock. You need that focus. So David had a sense of being safe with God. He had a sense of having peace with God, but also hope. And Jesus does provide hope. In Galatians chapter 2, the life I now live in the body, the Apostle Paul wrote, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Loved me and gave himself for me. You see, Jesus loved you. That's why he went to the cross. We have hope because of love and power. In Psalm 62, power is God's and love comes from God. God is loving. He's faithful in his love. We have that in Jesus Christ. We have the power of the resurrection and the love shown us through his death on the cross. What could be more amazing than to have that love and that power available to us? We need that, and we get it. And because we are loved, therefore we are honoured. We're honoured to be loved by God, by that sacrifice. And so we find in Romans 1, that Jesus was appointed the Son of God in power by his resurrection from the dead. You know, the wonderful thing about this power is that there are lots of things that are powerful in this world, and there are lots of ways I could be more powerful in some ways in my life, but there are some things over which I have absolutely no power. And the one thing that is common to all of human beings, all of us here and all of humankind, is that we have no power whatsoever over death. We have power to some extent over our family income, over our health to some extent, over many things to some extent, but I have no power over death. But Jesus has conquered death. The power of the resurrection, that power is available to you and me to transform us. It's not a little bit of power, it's not a teeny bit of power, it's a massive power. It's the power that raised Jesus from the dead. I mean, the power over death is the power that's available to you and I. That means that we can live a transformed life. Not a perfect one, but a life where we have a sense of security and faith in God and hope with him. Love and power, the cross and the resurrection. That is what we have. 1 Corinthians 15. So it will be with the resurrection of the dead. At the end times when Jesus comes back, the body that is sown is perishable. It decays. It is raised imperishable. Post-resurrection body for us when Jesus comes back will live forever, be there forever. It is sown in dishonor because of sin and weakness. It is raised in glory because it will be perfect and there will be no weakness with that body. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. What power is involved with that? Jesus has and is willing to share. So, just to wrap up, some thoughts for us about our own personal lives. What does this mean for you and me? Well, I would say we need to remember this. The antidote to chaos is silence. If we're going to find this love and this power and this hope, we've got to spend enough time we've got for Him to be able to fill us with this. With the knowledge of it, the experience of it, the confidence of it, the assurance of it. We need time with Him. Time that is, and I have nothing against praying while we're driving or washing up or these kinds of things. But I think additionally, we need that time when there's nothing else but us and God. For God alone, I'm going to sit down in silence. Maybe it's a minute, maybe it's 2, maybe it's an hour. It doesn't really matter, but at least there's something, a moment in my day when this can happen. I like this quote. I can't remember where I read it. We mutter, we sputter, we fume and we spurt. We mumble and grumble, our feelings get hurt. We can't understand things, our vision grows dim, when all that we need is a moment with Him. And that's so true. And just sit there for a minute, close your eyes, take a breath and say, Jesus, God, I'm here for you right now. Nothing else. It's amazing what that does. It's amazing what that does. This is a prayer I use regularly. I used it this morning. It comes from an Anglican prayer book. I rather like it. I've slightly rewritten it to make it personal to me. But I prayed this in the morning. I did this morning. The night has passed and the day lies open before me. So God, please help me. Let me pray with one heart and one mind. In other words, a singular heart, a singular mind. Praying, focused on God. And then it says in the prayer book, silence is kept. And I keep a moment or 2 or a little bit of time in silence. And then I pray the second part of the prayer. As I rejoice in the gift of this new day, so may the light of your presence, O God, set my heart on fire with love for you, now and all through this day. And amen to that. Simple things can make all the difference to us really feeling connected to God and have access to what He has in mind for us. I want to encourage us to make times of silence part of our relationship with God. If it was important to David, if it helped him in those extreme chaotic circumstances, I am certain it will also help us.
As mentioned earlier, here's the conclusion to the sermon for today. So what have we looked at? We've seen that David understood in Psalm 62 that God was his place of safety, a place of rest, and his hope. And we've also seen that in Jesus we have that, in fact, even in a greater measure than David did, because Jesus provides us with the rest that we need, the peace that we need. He provides us with the salvation we need, the safety. He is the master of chaos. And we've also seen that we have hope in Him because He loved us enough to give Himself for us on the cross, and because He has the power proven by the resurrection to be the power that we need that we don't have, which is a wonderful promise. All we need to do is to remember that the antidote to chaos is silence. To take some time each day, and that would be my encouragement. Take some time every day, even just do it for a week. And even if it's just a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, to stop, preferably early in the morning. It could be before you go to work, it could be once you get to work and you sit in your car, or it could be on a park bench somewhere nearby, but wherever it is, to take a moment of silence and bring yourself into the presence of God, or recognize that He is with you and present with you, and then have a moment of silence where you can reflect on the fact that you have a very genuine and powerful, loving hope for the day ahead. And I believe that will help us to navigate the chaos in our lives and around us. With these qualities, we become people that the world will want to emulate. They will want to know where this peace comes from that we seem to have and that they would love to have themselves. This is part of our evangelistic effectiveness. Part of evangelistic effectiveness is silence, believe it or not. Yes, there's words to say to people, but the silence of connecting ourselves with our great God will help us to be attractive not because of ourselves, but because of what is within us, be attractive to the world. So with God's help, we are strong people, strong in His strength. We are safe people, safe with Him. We are significant people because we've been chosen and loved by Him. These are wonderful qualities to have. And all of this comes because we are a silent people. Make space in your life for a little silence. Just remember, the antidote to chaos is silence. God bless you.